What rose are you making?
It's a flower and dentil ornate ceiling rose. Quite detailed, quite a nice one. It has dentils around the edge, which I don't think you see very often in ceiling roses. Certainly that's the only mould we've got with dentil.
What is a dentil?
A dentil is, it looks like teeth basically, little square teeth. Dog's kissing me, give up. So yeah, I was just brushing it on. Brushing the plaster in every bit of it. And I tend to give it a bit of a squish, a bit of a stab. There we go. Just get rid of any air holes. Get it into all the nooks and crannies. You brush it all over, make sure you don't miss any bits obviously, and then we give it a splash, and then that's called the face or the firstings, whichever you want to call it. Just make sure it's nice and evenly covered.
Why do you splat the plaster onto it like that?
Just to thicken it up really, give it a nice, I don't know what the word is, thickness, I don't know. Then I just, if I have a little bit left, which usually, sometimes I have a little bit left, I'd squeeze it over the high points, where there's high points on the moulding. And that's the first face done. And wash your brush.
How long do you leave it to set?
It depends on the plaster. You know, every batch can vary. You can tell when it's starting to set. At the moment there you can see it's shiny. Once it starts to set, the shine goes dull. You can also obviously test it, stick your finger on it. See if it's still soft or if it's starting to pick up.
Does it go a bit more matte?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and I've just tested it there and you can see it's gone dull. So in the second, mix up the seconds, we call it, the second bowl.
How does it feel? Just a bit more viscous?
Yeah, just tacky. And we splash the seconds on. So that binds to your face so that when you screw through it, or indeed if it was a cornice you would saw through it, it saves your face what we call shelling off, so the face can fall off if it's set too much. Now we'll put scrim on there, jute scrim.
And what does the scrim do?
The scrim gives it its strength basically. So sometimes they get damaged, there'll be a hairline crack in them, but it's not going to fall apart. The scrim holds it all together, it gives it its strength. And when you're casting, you always have to make sure you've got 2 layers of scrim at all times for strength. So put the scrim on, and then we put lats on it. And the lats, you can screw through the lats into your joist in your ceiling for safety. You don't want one of those coming down on your head.
Yeah, they're quite heavy at times, aren't they?
And they can be, depending on the size of them. Make sure there's plenty of plaster underneath your lats.
So would you say the scrim and the lats are kind of integral to when you go into a really old building and the ancient roses are still holding together?
Yeah, yeah. When you take them down, there's, you know, the old ones are all full of scrim and lats. And this is an extra step here really because it's quite a deep ceiling rose. So I put a scrim round to sit my lats on to turn it in to give you a nice edge without having to put too much weight in it. And also you can screw through those as well if you know, sometimes in the centre you can't always get a beam in the centre to screw to, so you know, if you've got lats around the outside, you can always stick an extra screw in if you need to. You never know what you're going to come up against when you're out on site. You might not always use those, but it's good to know they're there in case you do. Bit of plaster on top of the lats so that when you turn the scrim in, it all sticks and it's nice and easy to fold in.
So this is the second layer of scrim.
Yeah. Just gives it 2 layers of scrim.
And that's the traditional way to do it, right?
Yeah, that is. That's how I was taught 30 years ago. 2 layers of scrim in everything. Obviously, I go quicker than this when I'm not being filmed. Yeah, you keep your scrim to the edge, but not proud.
You've got to make sure it's not poking out.
That's right. And also, you don't want it too heavy. If you fill that in solid, it's going to weigh a ton, and it's not going to be any stronger. It's just going to weigh a lot more, and it's a waste of plaster, really. I think, you know, this is why I was taught to cast fibrous plasterer, make it as light as possible and as strong as possible. And just give it a little light splash on the back. It looks neater. I know you never see that, but to me, you know, for that couple of seconds it takes to make it look nicer, why not? You can have a bit of pride in your job, aren't you? What do you think?
With this kind of work, especially.
Yeah, else what's the point? Just build up that edge and make sure it's flat. Hopefully by this time your plaster's just starting to thicken up a little bit so it's easy to use.
Oh, it starts to look a bit more like ice cream around now.
I wouldn't recommend eating it.
We have had comments before from people asking what it tastes like.
It needs more salt. It's making me fall asleep watching that. It's quite therapeutic, isn't it? So just let that set a little bit more. It's so it's easy to scrape off. Or strike off, as we call it.
And after all this, how long do you leave it to set?
Probably 15-20 minutes. This one's a tricky one to get out because of the dentils, with it being a fiberglass mould, to make sure it's completely set. And then we tap it all the way around the edge with a mallet on the mould, not on the rose.
Once it's set, it then goes into the drying room. How long does it normally have to stay in there before it's properly...
Well, when we had a small drying room, overnight it would dry out, but now we've got a really large one. It takes a couple of days just because it doesn't get quite as warm. And I was just taking a little bit of that out just to take the weight off. It doesn't make it any less strong. If anything, it probably makes it stronger. It's got all that screw in it and the lats. You probably want about 1.5 inches around there to put your filler on. And go around it a few times. Make sure that it's nice and flat. No snots or anything on it. And make it easier to fit. And that's it.
Beautiful.
Ta-da!